What's up guys? Today I'm super excited to finally go over the mods that I've done to the brand new Inquisitor's Transport Scythe, and more specifically the mods that I was able to pack on the inside of this ship. Now unlike my previous video over the Ambush on Ferric set, this set already has plenty of interior from the start. You don't really need to modify any more interior out of it because you have everything you need for all the figures it comes with. On top of all the mods that I did to the ship, I've actually added 2 custom minifigures in this set, which is pretty unusual for me as I don't typically make custom minifigures or add in my own minifigures or modify them in any way. But after seeing them in Fallen Order and as well Kenobi, I had to make one of my own. But before we get into the custom figs, let's take a look at the small mods that I did to the exterior of the ship. And if my memory serves me correct, all I've done is added these extra detailing bits on top here. I believe the set already came with 1 or 2 of these little bar pipe pieces, but I wanted to continue that and just make a tiny bit more greebling on the top. So I continued it down the middle of the ship and then capped off these 2 with a stud on either side. But other than that, I didn't really do much to the exterior. Maybe I added these cheese slopes right here and a few smooth pieces around this area here. But I'm not too sure about that. All I really know is that I added the extra greebling on top there. LEGO already nailed the overall profile and shape of this set standard out of the box, so I didn't really have a lot of work to do on the outside. The main bit of modification came for the interior. And like I mentioned before, it was already a good enough interior space, but I just wanted to expand it and increase it so my minifigures weren't claustrophobic in there, similar to what we just did on the Ambush on Ferrix. So here you have a much better look at this interior space, and right now it looks kind of cramped, but that's just because I have everything packed in there. Let's go ahead and get all our minifigures out, including the 2 custom ones that we added in, and we'll go over everything we did. After a quick initial look, to those of you that have this set, it doesn't look too different. It really just looks like I added some piping detail or some funky stuff on the wall over here, and whatever this might be. However, if we take a look at the ship from above, you can see I've actually extended this interior space out by 2 studs, 1 stud on either side. Originally on the set, these side control panels were attached by some clip bits and they could be moved just ever so slightly. And while that looked just fine, they were actually taking up this last line of studs on the edge of the base plate. So I went ahead and pushed them out, and I actually have them sitting on some headlight brackets hanging down from the wings here. And then the smooth black pieces that were on the original set, I as well pushed those 1 stud out so we can make use of that last line of studs. On the underside of the craft, you can actually see how I added in that extra stud length right here. I added this Technic brick using some Technic pins that just slid right into the side of the Inquisitor Transport. And then we added the 1 base plate on top of that to use those smooth tiles that came with the original set. So then after doing that, it allowed us to utilize this last row of studs as usable foot space. So now we have an 8 stud wide interior with more than enough space for all your figures. However, with maximizing the interior space, you guys definitely noticed the 2 missing chairs as well as all the lightsaber holders that were behind them. And while I liked that design and I liked having the 2 extra seats, I didn't like how the lightsabers just stuck into these jumpers on the ground, and those jumpers took up a lot of usable minifigure space. So on the underside of the ship, I added a few clips for all the Inquisitors to put their lightsabers in, and then I covered it up on one side, so when you grip the ship from the bottom, you're not pushing the lightsabers off their clips. Without this gray plate on the bottom, I tend to pick up this set around here in the center, so my thumb was constantly knocking off the lightsabers, so I had to cover them up with something. However, back up top in the main section of the ship, I guess we'll head towards the back and then circle around to the front of the craft. In the rear here, you saw this miscellaneous piping details, and this isn't actually piping detail or any industrial greebling. This area is a 3-in-1 MedBay, torture chamber, or sleeping quarters. Let me show you how it works. We're going to go ahead and fold back this back panel, and then bring down the bed / torture chair / med chair. And then now you have a place to lay down your figures so they can go to bed, or if they're a prisoner, they can get tortured by the Inquisitors, or if they're battle damaged, you can bring down the medical arms and then start operating on your minifigure. Originally, I only intended to add 1 little bed for a minifigure to sleep in between travels, but gradually it progressed into a little med bay with all these extra tools hanging off the top. And then as well, because they're Inquisitors and they're dark side users, it very quickly progressed into what could be a torture chair. But if you don't like those tools and they get in the way a little bit too much, you can just remove them off that back wall there, and it removes the entire little assembly. And here you can get a better look at it. On the bottom side, I added 1 translucent brick here. This is meant to represent some kind of extra light, so whenever you're doing any medical bay procedures, you have all the light you need. And then of course we have the torture / medical tools that fold off the clip bit here. We'll go ahead and just reattach that onto the back wall, and we'll get Reva out of there. We can fold this bed back up, and it sits flush with those lights on the back, or almost flush. And then we can bring down this back wall and fold the tools down in front of it, and then it's completely compact up against that wall there. But now that we're done with the back, we can head towards the front of the interior space, and I feel like a few of you guys will notice what this is. And if you don't recognize this panel, you're probably incredibly young and you haven't played one of the best games on the planet, LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga. If you've somehow found my videos without playing LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga, I highly recommend you do. It is a nostalgia machine for most of us that have played it. And this little control panel I've added into the center of the ship pays homage to that game. In the game, there's many different control panels and different doors you have to go through, but you have to have a specific character to do it. So I decided to build up one of the control panels that they have in game. It's not perfectly accurate to what it looks like, but I used one retro Lego control panel that you don't really see around anymore for this control panel on the right. And then of course the standard green and red buttons. And then this is where the face would be of the character that you need to unlock the door, but I don't have a printed piece like that, so I just went with a standard circular tile. Before I toss this back behind the pilot seat, I know some people aren't going to want some big bulky control panel right in the center of the ship, especially if they don't care about the game that it came from, and I completely understand that. So I actually designed a co-pilot chair to go right there if you didn't want to make this. Here we have a simple enough chair and control panel build that you can slide in behind the main pilot if you want to have a co-gunner or a co-pilot. And now, if you weren't a fan of that video game control panel, you now have an extra seat for a co-pilot or a gunner. And luckily enough, it's compact enough that it doesn't extend too much into that minifigure space and make a lot of it unusable. Other than the co-pilot chair / video game control panel, I did do a tiny bit up at the main pilot seat. On either side, right before we get to the cockpit area, you see I have added these pieces with the cheese slopes on the side. But after adding the gray cheese slopes on the side, it really helps blend with the main larger gray bricks going up front with the pilot, and it looks like a much smoother transition from the main compartment into the pilot area here. But in the pilot area, the tiny amount that I said that I did is just adding in those 2 joysticks so we can help control the craft a little bit better. That pretty much covers every bit of modification that we've done to the interior space on the Inquisitor's Transport Scythe. The last bit of interior space to go over on the set is actually up front, and I do like this interior space, but it's incredibly hard to reach and position minifigures in, so I largely left it alone. You can just barely see it at the back. I have one red translucent piece underneath that grill bit for a little bit of light coming through a little vented area. But other than that, this area remains largely unchanged, and like I said, I do like it. It's just really hard to get to, so I try and stay away from it. In the future though, I do want to modify this set to have more of a traditional hallway going from this front compartment to the rear compartment. And like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I actually do have 2 custom figures that I've added into this set. This one here on the left is rather simple. It's just a TIE fighter pilot with a red pauldron going up. The big red collar really just signifies that he's different and more important than standard Imperial pilots, and that he rides with the Inquisitors rather than his own TIE fighter. The other one, and my personal favorite of the bunch, is my own custom Purge Trooper minifigure. Like many other fans, after seeing Purge Troopers in Jedi Fallen Order and now Obi-Wan Kenobi, I definitely want an official figure of my own. But until they make one, we're just going to have to make do with purest customs, and that's exactly what this is. This doesn't use any custom non-official LEGO prints. These are all sourced from official LEGO figures. Up top here, I think you guys can very obviously see I used the Dark Trooper head. For the shoulder armor, we used a Ninjago shoulder pauldron with a sword sheath on the back. For the chest plate and the arms, we used crosshair from the Bad Batch shuttle. And then the little half camo that he's wearing is actually the same piece I use on my Inquisitor TIE Fighter pilot. It comes from the Spider-Man in the Marvel What If CMF wave. Luckily, I got a number of repeats of those, so I have a ton of red capes and collars to go around. But I just went ahead and tossed that on his legs as a little bit of a half camo. I don't have a full black camo piece going around. I can't find any of my clone troopers that have that. And then the legs as well are sourced from Crosshair in the Bad Batch. And I did make him his own custom Purge Trooper blaster using a red Technic pin, a standard long blaster from Star Wars, some binoculars on the end, and then this little piping piece on the underside of the binoculars. Alrighty guys, well that pretty much covers it, and that's all the mods that I've done to the Inquisitor Transport Scythe. I absolutely love this set. I believe it's probably one of the contenders for best set of the wave. And I do want to revisit it in the future, perhaps with your guys' ideas. So if you guys have any ideas for any mods or even an alternate build you want out of this set, leave them in the comments below and we'll see what we can do for a part 2 of this video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to subscribe down below so you can stay up to date on any mod or alternate build videos that we post in the future. And make sure to drop a like below if you enjoyed the mods that I showcased in this video. Other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace, fellas.